Okay, this begins the reading of NDAA 2013, Section 1078, Dissemination Abroad of Information about the United States. A. United States Information Educational Exchange Act of 1948, Section 501 of the United States Information Educational Exchange Act of 1948 is amended to read as follows. General Authorization. The Secretary and the Board of Broadcasting Board of Governors are authorized to use funds appropriated or otherwise made available for public diplomacy information programs to provide for the preparation, dissemination, and use of information intended for foreign audiences abroad about the United States, its people, and its policies through press, publications, radio, motion pictures, the internet, and other information media, including social media, and through information centers, instructors, and otherwise direct or indirect means of communication, except as provided for in paragraph 2. The Secretary and the Board Broadcasting of Governors may, upon request and reimbursement of the reasonable cost incurred in fulfilling such a request, make available in the United States motion pictures, films, video, audio, and other materials disseminated abroad pursuant to this Act, the United States International Broadcasting Act of 1994, the Radio Broadcasting to Cuba Act, or the Television Broadcasting to Cuba Act. Any reimbursement pursuant to this paragraph shall be credited to the applicable appropriation account of the Department of State or the Broadcasting Board of Governors as appropriate. The Secretary and the Broadcasting Board of Governors shall issue necessary regulations to establish procedures to maintain such material, for reimbursement of the reasonable cost incurred in fulfilling requests for such material, to ensure that the persons seeking release of such material have secured and paid for necessary United States rights and licenses. With respect to the material disseminated abroad before the effective date of Section 1078 of National Defense Authorization Act for the fiscal year of 2013. A. The Secretary and the Broadcasting Board of Governors shall make available to the Archivist of the United States for domestic distribution motion pictures, films, videotapes, and other materials 12 years after the initial dissemination of the material abroad. The Archivist shall be the official custodian of the material and shall issue necessary regulations to ensure that persons seeking its release in the United States have secured and paid for necessary United States rights and licenses, that all costs associated with the provision of the material by the Archivist shall be paid by the person seeking its release in accordance with paragraph 4. The Archivist may undertake the functions described in the paragraph on behalf of and at the request of the Secretary or the Broadcasting Board of Governors. The Archivist may charge fees to recover the costs described in paragraphs 1 and 2 in accordance with Section 2116 of Title 4 United States Code. Such fees shall be paid into, administered, and expected as part of the National Archives Trust Fund, Nothing in this section may be construed to require the Secretary or the Broadcasting Board of Governors to make material disseminated abroad available in any format other than in the format disseminated abroad. Rule of construction. Nothing in this section or in the United States Information and Educational Exchange Act of 1948 may be construed to affect the allocation of funds appropriated or otherwise made specifically available for public diplomacy, to authorize appropriations for Broadcasting Board of Governors programming other than foreign audiences abroad. Foreign Relations Authorization Act. Fiscal years 1986 and 87. Section 208 of the Foreign Relations Authorization Act is amended to read as follows. Clarification on domestic distribution of program materials. In general, no funds authorized to be appropriated to the Department of State or the Broadcasting Board of Governors shall be used to influence public opinion in the United States. This section shall apply only to programs carried out pursuant to the United States Information Exchange Act of 1948, the United States International Broadcast of 1994, the radio broadcast to Cuba, the television broadcasting to Cuba. This section shall not prohibit or delay the Department of State or the Broadcasting Board of Governors from providing information about its operations, policy, programs, or program material, or making available to the media, public, or Congress in accordance with other applicable law. Rule of construction. Nothing in this section shall be construed to prohibit the Department of State or Broadcasting Board of Governors from engaging in any medium or form of communication, either directly or indirectly, because a United States domestic audience is or may be thereby exposed to program material or based upon a presumption of such exposure. Such material may be made available within the United States and disseminated when appropriate, pursuant to Sections 502 and Section 1005 of the United States Information and Exchange Act of 1948, except that nothing in this section may be construed to authorize the Department of State or Broadcasting Board of Governors to disseminate within the United States any program material prepared for dissemination abroad or before the effective date of the National Defense Authorization Act for 2013. Application. The provisions of this section shall apply only to the Department of State and the Broadcasting Board of Governors and to no other department or agency of federal government. Conforming amendments. The United States Information Educational Exchange Act of 1948 is amended. Insertion of 502, insertion of the Broadcasting Board of Governors and Secretary, insertion of the Broadcasting Board of Governors in Section 1005, inserting the Broadcasting Board of Governors after Secretary each place it appears. Effective date. This section shall take effect and apply on the date that is 180 days after the date of the enactment of this section. Briefing. Not later than 90 days after the date of the enactment of this act, the Secretary of Defense shall provide to the committees and armed services of the Senate and the House of Representatives a briefing on the interagency process for coordinating and deconflicting full-spectrum military cyber operations of the federal government elements. The briefing required under subsection A shall include a description each of the following. 1. The business process and rules governing the interagency process for coordinating and deconflicting full-spectrum military cyber operations, the membership and responsibility of such interagency process, the current status of interagency guidance, clarifying rules and responsibilities for full-spectrum military cyber operations, plans for implementing the planning and guidance of such interagency process, budget, justification documents. The Secretary of Defense shall submit to the Congressional Defense Committees dedicated budget documentation materials to accompany the budget submissions for the fiscal year 2015 and each subsequent fiscal year, including a single Department of Defense-wide budget estimate, detailed budget planning data for full-spectrum military cyberspace operations. Such material shall be submitted in unclassified form, but may include a classified annex. Section 1080, Sense of Congress regarding unauthorized disclosures of classified information. It is the sense of Congress that unauthorized disclosures of classified information can threaten the national security and foreign relations of the United States. The Department of Defense has taken positive steps towards improving its policies, procedures, and enforcement mechanisms regarding unauthorized disclosures of classified information and should continue to improve upon such policies. Other departments and agencies of the federal government shall undertake similar efforts. The Department of Justice shall investigate possible violations of federal law related to unauthorized disclosures of classified information, including disclosures related to military intelligence and operational capabilities of the United States and its allies. In appropriate cases, individuals responsible for such unauthorized materials should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. I'm going to stop right here.